the first time we watch Wall-E, it's easy to accept the film's premise without thinking much about it. Earth is abandoned, 700 years have passed, and one small robot is still working. But after revisiting the film, a question kept bothering me. What actually happens to someone after such a long period? Centuries are hard to imagine. None of us will ever come close to that. But fiction does that. It exaggerates certain conditions to make visible things that already happen to us on a much smaller scale. We don't have that much time, but we do have enough to be changed by it. And I realized that Wall-E explores a possibility that almost nobody talks about. When we think about someone who has lived for that long, the stories we know almost point to the same conclusion. Eternity stops feeling like a gift and becomes a burden. Vampires, immortal beings, and characters who have lived for centuries tend to share one defining trait. They seem tired of existence itself, as if nothing could truly surprise them anymore. There's a certain logic behind that. Novelty has its limits. Given enough time, even the most extraordinary experiences eventually become just another memory. As Solomon wrote thousands of years ago, there is no new thing under the sun. Thinking about that, I realized we already experience smaller versions of the same process, not over centuries, but over decades. Not that long ago, I used to play guitar almost every day. Now, I sometimes have to check whether the strings have started rusting. The strange part is that this didn't happen because I stopped enjoying it. When I pick it up again, it's just as fun as I remember. The problem is something else. Adult life, especially once greater responsibilities arrive, has a way of turning rest into the day's main goal. After a long, exhausting day, those few free hours, or occasionally just a few minutes, suddenly become fiercely contested, and rest starts competing with everything that once made us happy, the very things we used to look forward to whenever we finally had some free time. In this new reality, the outcome is almost always the same. Rest wins. What's interesting is that whenever, for whatever reason, we push ourselves to do one of those things anyway, whether it's reading a few pages, practicing a skill, or picking up an instrument, the thought that usually follows is remarkably similar. I'm really glad I didn't give in to the exhaustion and spend a few minutes doing this. It makes me wonder if the years change more than just our bodies. Maybe they quietly reshape what deserves our attention. That might explain why so many children can spend hours drawing without anyone telling them to. They do it simply because they want to. Years later, many of those drawings exist only as distant memories, even for those who once showed clear talent. Other priorities slowly took their place. Very few people consciously abandon the things they love. Most of the time, those things simply keep getting pushed to later, and not rarely, later never comes. That was the moment I started looking at Wall-E differently. If I can already leave small parts of myself behind over just a few years, what would 700 do to me? Unlike that familiar image of melancholy, Wall-E suggests something entirely different from the very beginning. For 7 centuries, he keeps doing exactly what he was built to do. He compacts trash, builds towering stacks, some of them dozens of meters high, returns home, collects small objects he discovers throughout the day, watches the same musical, lives almost the exact same routine day after day. At first glance, it feels like an incredibly limited existence. But the more I thought about it, the more I wondered if there was another way to see it. Maybe those small habits are not simply the result of routine. What if they are the very reason routine never manages to erase who he is? There was a scene in the film that seems to exist purely as a joke. Wally finds a diamond ring. He removes the diamond, throws the ring away, and keeps only the ring box. The first time we watch it, that's exactly where the joke is. The choice seems absurd, but once we remember that this little robot has spent 700 years alone on Earth, it suddenly doesn't seem so absurd anymore. After so long, a sturdy little box might actually be far more valuable than a precious stone. Wally doesn't collect things according to the way we usually assign value. In fact, most of what he brings home seems completely ordinary. A spoon, a Rubik's Cube, a light bulb, many of these objects have long since lost their original purpose, and yet they still spark his curiosity. That made me realize we do something pretty similar. We keep old photographs, ticket stubs, simple gifts, objects with almost no material value, yet somehow capable of carrying pieces of our own story. Maybe a very long life does something like that. Maybe it slowly turns ordinary things into anchors of stability. When everything extraordinary eventually disappears, perhaps it's the ordinary that becomes extraordinary. There is another detail that reinforces that idea. Wally keeps working, not because someone is watching, not because there's a reward waiting for him. He simply continues, and the more I think about it, the harder it becomes to believe that this is just programming. His routine feels like something much deeper. It has become part of his identity, a source of meaning. His motivation comes entirely from within. We usually associate meaning with life's biggest moments, its greatest achievements, and those moments truly do matter. But watching Wally leaves me with the impression that meaning can also emerge from something much smaller, from repetition, from discipline becoming habit. Many things seem too insignificant to matter on their own. Making your bed, learning one small new skill, none of them changes a life in a single day, but repeated hundreds or even thousands of times, they slowly shape the person we become. People who dismiss routine rarely notice this. They might even joke that it's robotic, but all the while, an entire human life is quietly being refined. Growing older usually makes us think about what we lost. Our energy isn't quite the same. Our memory changes. Our bodies change. Wally made me consider another possibility. Maybe time is also capable of refining certain parts of us. The longer he remains alone, the more we notice small gestures that seem to have been polished by repetition. His curiosity, the gentleness with which he handles every object, the way he looks at the world, none of it seems to have faded. If anything, it has grown stronger. Even within a human lifetime, we spend years repeating small actions that rarely seem important. The question is, Whether those actions are simply filling our present or quietly shaping the person we'll become 20 or 30 years from now. In fact, if time really builds something inside us, maybe the most important question is not who we hope to become someday. Maybe it's what we are choosing to repeat today. After more than half a millennium, with Earth in ruins and humanity long gone, Wall-E remained quietly faithful to his purpose. More than a machine, following its programming, he preserved something deeply human, his sense of wonder. He searched for a routine capable of giving everyday life meaning. None of us will ever know what it would be like to live for 700 years, but if we're fortunate, all of us will discover what decades of repetition are capable of doing to us. And that doesn't seem insignificant to me. Going back to those little things we love may be one of the best ways of finding our way back to ourselves, to parts of our identity we thought had been left behind. More than making our days all look the same, routine keeps the most important parts of who we are from being endlessly postponed to some undefined tomorrow. What's one small thing you love that keeps getting pushed to later? Let me know. If you like this, please hit the like button. If you want more, check my other videos and subscribe. There's new content every Wednesday. I'm Charles, and I truly appreciate your time.